Hello, my name is Paula Birch Jackson. I am a graduate student with Liberty University. Today, I will be discussing with you my interpersonal communication project, HSCO 508. My outline will be a discussion regarding my overarching goals. We will discuss my behavior blend and background, communication barriers, resources and strategies, and my action plan that I intend to implement to hold me accountable to reaching my goals. My overarching goal: first of all, I am both a life coach and a real estate agent. As a life coach, my goal is to use the tools gleaned from this class to help encourage, equip, and empower others to live their life by design rather than by default. As a real estate agent, I intend to use my communication skills learned through this course to encourage others to realize their dream of home ownership. For me, in my line of work, improving my interpersonal communication skills is not an option, it is truly a must. Background: a little bit about me. As I said before, my name is Paula Birch Jackson. I am married with 3 kids, a son and 2 daughters. My son is 29, my oldest daughter is 27, and my youngest daughter is 12. In 2016, I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer, but I am a survivor. But throughout that experience, it caused me to take a look at my life and to reflect. And I decided that I was living my life by default rather than by design. Therefore, I resigned my position, I enrolled in Liberty University, and I am pursuing my goals with a master's in human services with an emphasis on life coaching. I believe that I was created to encourage and empower others, and I get so much joy out of doing that. But one of the things that I did recognize, and I'm so grateful for this course, is that there were some challenges in my communication process. And so there's some things that I need to improve, and this class has really helped me to realize those things, and I'm going to share more about that. One of the first things that we did in this course was take a DISC analysis. And that is when they ask you a series of questions so that you can identify your behavior pattern. Well, I've taken the DISC analysis on several occasions in my life before, but this time I was really in awe of what I discovered. If you notice this presentation, you have 2 sets of slides from me. The set here, these are the results of when I've taken the DISC analysis before. And without fail, I've taken the DISC analysis when I worked for the federal government. I've taken it as a real estate employee. I've taken it as a supervisor. And each time, my results were very similar to this. And that is a high ID. The yellow is the I, the D is the red. Well, when I took the test this time, I was amazed to see a dramatic change in my outlook. But one of the things that told me from the back is that something has changed in my life. And it did. I've changed careers. I'm now working for myself, and I'm enjoying it. And one of the things that I learned from this is that previously when I was an employee, my behavior pattern was, like I said, a high ID. That means, and the thing about it is both the I and the D was always above the line, which means those were my stronger characteristics. And so that suggested for me, what you see is what you get. It tells me that I enjoy communicating with people, and I have an ability to convince and promote in a friendly and talkative manner to achieve my goals. And that was so true when I was in corporate America. But the results this time while I was in school indicated that I am a high IS, which suggests I am influential and stable. I love people, and people love me. I thought that was ironic, seeing as how I am pursuing my goal further as being a life coach as well as being a real estate agent, because those things will require me to have great working relationships with people. But what was ironic about this assessment is that the real me, this graph here, identifies the real me, and if you see, all 4 levels are right above line. That was really weird because I've never seen that before. But what the test shows me is that I am above the midline. That means my personality test suggests that I am an overachiever, and I tend to try to be all things to all people. While that can be good because I can relate to all levels of people because I understand at some level all the levels. However, it can also be overwhelming because I'm constantly trying to be all things for all people. So in my assessment, it cautioned me to be careful in that area. But I think, again, in my line of work, I have to learn. I think the Apostle Paul said that, I became all things to all people. In Rome, he did what the Romans doing. And that's what I found that I'm doing in this new stage of my life, which is kind of exciting. During the course, I did identify some communication barriers that I need to address. And what I did was I put them in 3 different sections. We had 4 wonderful books, 3 books that I shared, that I talked about, that we talked from and studied from during the course. And one of them is Why Don't We Listen? And that's by James Peterson. We have Listening, The Forgotten Skill. And this is by Madeline Burley Allen. And then we have Bridges, Not Walls. Awesome book. And this is by Jon Stewart. And so from the Listening, The Forgotten Skill book, I came up with the communication barrier that I need to improve most. It's miscalculation in listening. From Bridges Not Walls, I realized that I typically have a misunderstanding in my communication. And from Why Don't We Listen Better, there's a misinterpretation. I have a misinterpretation of emotions. Miscalculation in Listening by Facts from Burley Allen. One of the things that she talks about is 3 areas that I want to cover that I got from that book, and that is perception, reception, and attention. Burley suggests that our perception influences our reception and impacts how we pay attention. She also says that when we're in that state, we're typically unconscious. It's not even aware that we're not really listening. She says that typically a barrier is that we hear what we want to hear. Now, when I tell you, I was so guilty of that. I typically have conversations going on in my head all the time. And sometimes I've played out a whole conversation in my head so that even when the person that I'm speaking with, when they're talking, I can't hear past this conversation in my head because I'm hearing what I want to hear. And that is not good communication. Last but not least in this area, I have biased listening. So sometimes when people are saying things, if I, in my mind, said that it's not interesting, I automatically shut it down, which again is a communication barrier. Because now the listener, the person that I'm speaking with, realizes that I'm not really paying attention to them. And a lot of time I've already formed an opinion and I'm not being fair to the person. So that's the area that I need to work on. The second area that I need to work on is misunderstanding the communication process. And this is out of the book Bridges Not Walls by Jon Stewart. Oh my goodness. He talked about inhaling and exhaling. He likened our listening, our communication process to that of breathing. When we inhale, we take information out. And when we when we inhale, we take information in. And when we exhale, we're giving information out. Well, inhaling requires perception. That means becoming aware of the way we perceive others. Now that is so amazing because sometimes we've heard the phrase, the glass is half full. If you're a person who thinks of a glass as half full, more than likely you're going to perceive people in a positive way. But you're the type of person that thinks that the glass is half empty, then more than likely you won't receive people that way. You'll receive them in a negative way. Well, when we do that, we're not inhaling what we're actually hearing. We're inhaling our own perceptions. And so when we learn how to improve our perception, it enables us to be more sensitive to others. The second part of inhaling is listening, which listening enables us to select, organize, and make inference about what the other person is saying and doing. So if we're really listening, then we're really engaging in the person and we're hearing what they're actually saying rather than what we think that they're saying. Exhaling, again, that involves outputting of information. When you're exhaling, you have to be open with people. It requires you to be aware of who you are, accepting yourself, and taking risks of trusting the other person to be accepting of you. In the book, he refers to that as being able to self-disclose. Now, self-disclose is very, very risky because it requires you to be vulnerable. It requires you to share exactly how I'm feeling about that. Well, being married and pretty much a newlywed, I actually put that to the test because there were some communication challenges that I noticed that I was having on my part, and I was hearing things that my husband was not saying. But I had to self-disclose to him what was going on inside of me so that we can move past that brick wall of lack of communication. And I'm telling you, applying that principle really helped me move past that. When we disclose, like I said, we have to have a willingness to be vulnerable because we have to give information about ourselves. And sometimes we don't like to admit to people that we are imperfect human beings, but we are imperfect human beings. The next communication barrier that I would like to share with you is misinterpretation of emotions. And I got that from James Peterson's book, oh my goodness, Why Don't We Listen Better? Well, he talked about the flat brain theory. Now, I found that flat brain theory to be very, very, very interesting. And what he supposes is that when we are hurt or damaged or we're experiencing some kind of pain or some kind of letdown or disappointment from another person, we tend to internalize that stuff and we hold that stuff in our belly. I'm pretty sure you've heard of the phrase, that hit me in my gut. Well, those things sit in your guts. And when you don't resolve them quickly and appropriately, you begin to get gut overload, or what he refers to as stomach overload. And if you don't successfully unload that stuff, eventually it begins to just grow. And Peterson suggests that it causes your stomach to expand. Well, once your stomach expands, it begins to affect your other organs because now it's ran out of its own room, so it's pushing the organs up into your heart. Now, when your heart has all of this stuff that's built up in your heart, you have a hardened heart. And I always say, when my heart is hardened, the Holy Spirit can't flow and do the things that He needs to do in my life. And so when your heart is hardened, and then it begins to cause your brain to flatten. Because with a hardened heart, you can't pump the blood through your body the way that you need to pump it, which means oxygen is not getting to your brain the way that it needs to get brain, and it causes your brain to go flat. That's what he calls the flat brain syndrome. And then when that brain goes flat, you just explode. Flat line in the hospital means that you're gone. You're off the deep end. And that's what now that really resonated with me. And again, it caused me to do a self-evaluation. And there were a whole lot of things that I had been storing in my stomach that caused my belly to just swell, that caused my heart to harden, and caused my brain to go flat. And so now when I'm having one of those, what I call those flat brains moment, I would say to my husband, I'm having a flat brain moment. And we're able to talk through that and move past that. So those are the barriers that I identified that I want to work on. And so I'm so excited about the book because it also gives us some resources on how to deal with our communication barriers. And there's actually 3 areas that I gleaned, not only from the reading material, but also from a journal ad that I happened to run across regarding communication. And so in the book with Peterson, he talks about what he called the talker-listener card. And as the talker, my responsibility is to own my own problems. It's to share my feelings and my thoughts. As the talker, using the card, I avoid accusing, attacking, labeling, and judging. But as a listener, on the other hand, my job is to be calm and don't own the problem. Because whatever we're talking about, the talker brings that situation to the conversation. So that is their conversation. They have to own their part in the conversation. As the listener, when I'm using a talking listener card, I must provide safety and understanding, and I must avoid agreeing, disagreeing, achieving, or defending. Sometimes we just need to listen. Okay? From the article that I read, it talked about we have to learn to listen for the purpose of learning. Now, I thought that was fired up because it caused me to reflect on the story in the Bible when Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, came to visit, and he saw how Moses was handling the people. And what he did was he stopped and he observed, but then he asked the question, and then he listened to Moses' explanation of why he was conducting his ministry that way. And then Jethro provided some advice and guidance. So he was listening with the intent of learning. And I thought that was so um, pivotal for me because someone, no matter who they are, they have something that they can share that you can learn from. I always like to say in the Bible, God used a donkey to save a man's life. So there's always something for us to learn from another person, but we have to learn how to just silence our mouth, silence our mind, so that we can learn. And the 3 points that I gleaned from that article was that we have to listen intently, we have to be mindful of how we are reacting, and we have to absorb what the talker is actually saying. Now, that being mindful of how we're actually acting, there has been times when I've heard buzzword, when certain words have kind of set me off, and I have to be mindful, why are you feeling that way? So I have to, why is that word or why is that situation, why is that causing you to react that way? And when I do that, that causes me to reflect, and then I'm able to go back to listening intently when I'm internally dealing with my emotions. But my goal is to get to the point that I don't have those emotions, that I check them at the door so that when I'm in a communication setting, I'm able to listen with both my ears. Finally, in the Burley Allen's book, she provided the 12-step methods to improve listening skills. And these are definitely some skills that I'm going to put in my library, in my tool belt, so that as I'm moving forward in my life coaching and real estate career, that whenever I need to grab these tools out of my box, I will have them accessible. But what these 12 steps are is to search for something I can use and find areas of common interest. Take the initiative, work at listening, focus my attention on the ideas, make meaningful notes, resist external distractions, hold rebuttals, watch out for hot buttons, which is something I really have to work on, keep an open mind, ask questions to clarify understanding. 9, capitalize on thought, speed, and summarize. Practice regularly, analyze what is being said non-verbally, and evaluate and be critical of content, not on the speaker's delivery. That is some great information. My action plan. I like the fact that we could come up with an action plan in this assignment. And I actually use the word action as an acronym. And so as I'm going through my journey on improving my interpersonal communication skill, my action plan is A, acknowledge my emotions when I'm in a communication setting. C, consider, why am I having this emotion? T, try applying the talker listener card. I, identify the interpersonal communication gap or barrier. O, observe the behavior of the person I'm communicating. And N, nurture that communication relationship with love. In conclusion, my pastor always says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. For me, learning to listen twice as much as I talk will demonstrate to the talker that I care. I hope that you have enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to sharing with you again. Make it a great day.